की आवाज़ बहुत कम आ रही है, ज़रा थोड़ा सा वॉल्यूम करिएगा। मैम आपको मेरी आवाज़ आ रही है?
अली मेरी आवाज़ आ रही है आपको?
जी मैम आ रही है, लेकिन थोड़ी लैग कर रही है अभी भी। सर जस्ट इन 2 मिनट्स वो दोबारा ज्वाइन कर रही हैं, ज़रा इंटरनेट कनेक्शन थोड़ा वीक था। हम स्टार्ट करते हैं।
जी अली, are you ready? Should we start?
यस मैम।
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all are keeping very well. My name is Kamal and I am an associate member of PIPFA and I have also a member of PIPFA Pestabad branch committee. And I'm really elated to welcome you all to this webinar on blockchain technology, which is organized by PIPFA Festabad branch committee. So let's start with the kind name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. So a few minutes silence for the recitation of a few verses from Holy Quran. Jazakallah. So ladies and gentlemen, as you all knew it very well that today's webinar is about blockchain technology, which is one of the most interesting and demanding topic nowadays. So in this session, we'll learn about the blockchain technology, its importance in the business, and the challenges faced by the CFOs while adopting this technology in their organizations. So to know this about to know all about the blockchain technology, we have with us Mr. Abdul Aziz Lang, the honorable speaker of today's session. He is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan and Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of Pakistan, also the Institute of Corporate Secretaries He is a recognized expert in strategy planning, organizational development, and change management, a leader, a planner, a community developer, one of the founders and senior partner of Guideline Management Consultancy Group. He worked in Bahrain, UAE, Pakistan, USA, UK, Germany with various organizations, including Gaplang, Gulf Air, Zagro, Ernest, and Young. So before handing over the session to the honorable speaker, I would like to mention one thing over here, that if you have any questions or queries, you can just directly go to the chat box, find my name Kamal Ahmed over there, and directly send me your questions. We would try to respond to all of the questions and queries by the end of session. So thank you very much from my side. Over to you, Mr. Abdulaziz, for the session.
Thank you very much. I think the introduction has already happened, and I am really obliged to be given this to talk to the members about this emerging new technology. The idea is not to discuss primarily about the blockchain, but we were talking about what challenges the CFOs facing in this by using this technology that will come as it comes. If you can see my presentation, can you please confirm? Can somebody confirm if you can see my presentation on screen?
No presentation. We can't see your presentation.
I think Ali need to put it on. Is it now? Is it now visible?
Yes, it's visible now.
Okay, that's great. So the brief introduction happened. I may not look exactly as the picture is because these days I'm cutting my hair myself. So every time we have a new look. So apart from the joke, but that's working long time outside Pakistan. It's about 20 years. I've been out working different countries, different organizations, managing consultancy business from UK for a long time. It's been like for 5 years. We have Guidelines operative. What I want to say that, I mean, there are a lot of use in this whole scenario. Therefore, it was thought that why don't we just present in a very simple language what is blockchain for multiple organizations. 2 of them is still happening in UK. Therefore, I probably can give you a slightly more detailed insight about specifically on the finance people. That is the main subject at the moment. But it is also necessary for us to understand what is blockchain before we go exactly to talk about the challenges that CFOs are facing. Blockchain technology is relatively new. It's been not really too much time is gone, but as any other technology, it's not just a software, it's a total platform, it's changing the entire environment of the businesses, of how the transaction happen. It is evolving, emerging. Many businesses are adopting it as we go forward, but it's still a lot of work to do. Other than the challenges, the main thing what we try to understand as a finance team is then what it is. So if I go and start looking, when I was doing this about 5 years ago, when I first encountered with a blockchain client and I say, let me see what is blockchain. So I found this kind of a definition, that it is a digital information stored in transaction, public database, peer-to-peer. What does that mean? I mean, it becomes like it's like a alien language to me, or couldn't understand. And the mostly people who are trying to explain, they explain like this. Compared to standard database, blockchain does not need a central authority, blah, blah. That rather than explaining the whole thing, it making more complex, more complicated, and more confusing. We are finance people. We are not tech savvy, and we don't want to be a blockchain expert. What we want that the finance function will run smoothly and fulfill the desires and the demands of our internal and external customers. Plus, we need to satisfy regulatory authorities. We need to satisfy the reporting requirements. Therefore, the problem with this technology explanation is mostly done by the technology expert people. They know the fundamentals and they just straight go and talk about the technology itself. So it was necessary for me, before I go over the challenges, I try to talk about what, in a simple language, what it is. So if I say, like, if I transact with one person, so when I have one supplier, I buy goods from here and I need to make payments. How do we make payment? Either the bank transfer, I make payment through credit card, I make PayPal transaction or whatever. This requires a third-party intervention into my transaction with my supplier. So a private transaction between me and my supplier has to be dealt through a third party, which can be a bank, which can be a credit card company, PayPal, or any other company that can facilitate transactions to complete. This not only generates more cost because every party involved into this transaction take the charges, but also at the same time, it gives the vulnerability of my data. So my transaction is pretty much open to the bank, very much known to the credit card companies, PayPals. And that can create a threat that my transaction can be visible to the people who should not be part of this transaction. So the hackers are simply people who are using data for marketing purposes. So my data is everywhere. It's just like very often we hear that our data breach happened to some so and so bank, and that thousands and hundreds and thousands of information have been stolen. So this information is stolen is mine, so include my transaction information and my information also. Blockchain, what it does create, it creates a point-to-point, person-to-person direct contact. So me, my supplier deal directly between us without any intervention of a third party. No banks involved, no credit card company comes in, no PayPal. I deal with my supplier directly. So between me and him, a transaction is created and I pay him most likely through using cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency, we are not talking much because that is a different topic. And probably we will have another section to talk about what cryptocurrency are and how do they work, how do the transactions happen using cryptocurrencies. But just understand that there are digital currencies which blockchain technology uses to settle the transactions. It has its own challenges. Blockchain technology can be used without cryptocurrencies, but that will not be a transaction-making technology. Technology in that case, it will be a more of a database and transaction flow network platform rather than the transaction will not complete without making the payment through blockchain. That's a different topic. So anyway, so make it simple. We say the blockchain provides me an ability to deal with my supplier or my from where I'm my customer directly rather than having a intervention of a third party. How does it work? Assume that, let's understand, I mean, going into detail about how the chain is created, let's talk about what is block. A block is, so we segregating block and chain here. And then we see how does this creates a sense. So block is a set of information. Basically, it has data. Every transaction when I do, it contains data. So it contains like my information, the transaction detail, who's the owner of the transaction, who I'm providing, et cetera, et cetera. And these all are, we call it a block. That set of data contains in a block. So when the transaction completes, this block will be complete and you cannot open it again. That's why it is more secure. The transaction is not available for editing, for amending, for changing, for deleting even. So this block will be complete. How do we secure the block? Through hashes. Hash is like, you can call it password kind of thing. So it is digitally generated by the blockchain system itself. So when I do the transaction, it is supported by a hash. Hash is a password. It's a long password. It's every time it's a unique one, and every time it is system generated password. So, and the more important is it has a hash of previous block. So when I create a block of transaction, the password is created, but this password is having digits from the previous block's password. So my password, the current transaction password is totally linked with the previous transaction's password, and so on. So it become like if somebody needs to temper the password, and I need to know what is my password, you need to know the previous password as well at the same time. Let's give more detail. So for example, I create a block that can generate a hash, which is 12 AB, for example. Because I'm telling this is the first block, so the previous block will not have any hash. This was the first block in any blockchain environment is called Genesis block. But when I create the second block, it will carry the hash of the previous transaction. So you can see here that is the new code being generated by the system, but it also has the hash of the previous code. So that is creating a link. And this link between the two blocks, or two sets of information, is called chain. So that is why it is called blockchain, because every block has been linked with the previous transaction. So one transaction I do today, it is linked with the previous transaction because my code or a password for this particular transaction is linked with the password of the previous transaction. So it has to happen. And it is just there. So the next transaction will happen the same thing, hash will create, but that transaction will have the previous code. So now the chain is even more stronger because if you see that in the middle block, the chain, the password has previous block hash as its own, but then the next block, which is created later on, it also has the link with my password, the current hash. So it is controlled two-way, previous block and the new block also. So the more blocks create, the more stronger the chain becomes. So if somebody try to, I mean, you can see that if in a normal blockchain environment, there are hundreds and thousands of transactions generated, and the password generally look like this. This is the hash. It's like a more than 60 digits because it always can control multiple items into that. So the hash is, which I'm using a 4-digit code, is a very simple just for understanding purposes, but usually it's a very long code, like a 60, 64-digit codes. And it always contained the previous blocks. So if somebody tried to forge it, So forge one transaction means if a middle block is somebody trying to forge transaction, to generate a transaction or delete a transaction or edit a transaction, he not only need to change the password, because system, the moment it will do the transaction, system will generate a new code. The new code will not match with the previous one because that information is stored in the previous block and that hash will not change. So if I even try to change anything, I need to first decode the previous block. And similarly, I need to decode the new block also, next block also, because the next block also has the hash of my block. So the two block has to be changed before I can change mine. But again, it creates a chain reaction because the previous block also is linked with the previous block and the next block is linked with the following block. So unless all the blocks, all the hashes in the entire blockchain since the beginning of the blockchain, no matter how many million transactions have been generated, unless they all change, all passwords change, all hashes change, one transaction cannot be changed, cannot be operated. That's impossible in this blockchain environment so far. That is making it more secure, more complex, and it is providing much security aspect to the organization, who are using blockchain. But not only that, we can assume that probably maybe there is a bigger machine, bigger hardware that can change all the hashes in an entire environment. Well, theoretically, yes, possible. But then again, there is another thing called P2P, peer-to-peer. So in what happened in this blockchain, there's thing is everybody has a ledger. All the participants in a blockchain has its ledger, means everybody knows all the transactions happening in a blockchain environment. So if I'm making any transaction, if there are 50 more participants or peers in a blockchain, they all get information about the transaction happening and they all have to approve it. Yes, there are, in every transaction, there are certain information which is available public, which is necessary for them to know that there is a transaction and the transaction originated from whom, so that the person can approve. But there are transactions which are very private, which is not visible to every participant. It is happening between the two users. So the buyer and seller can have different transaction terms, conditions, amount, which is totally and closely between them privately. But the other participant in a blockchain will know that there is a transaction moving and which is an originator, and then somebody else is who is in the blockchain, who they know is the beneficiary, so they can approve it. So the third party who's not known to anybody come and try to change it, the peers will not approve it. At least one of them will find out there is something going on. So this is the additional feature which is making it more complex. So that you can see the chart on the right side, that is like every computer is linked with every computer. So it's a very complex peer-to-peer network. But that's giving a hell of a security to the entire environment. Now, it's important to business, we understand. We understand that there are benefits. So there's a data integrity because this is very much secure. It is very transparent because every participant know that there is a transaction happening and they can stop and block any malpractice into this going on. It provides security. It reduces costs only because it is avoiding any third-party intervention into this. So there are no intermediaries. So no bank, no credit card companies who will take transaction charges. It improves the speed and efficiency is not the technology itself, but because it is not involving any third party, so there is no further approval required. I buy, supplier agree, and that's it, end story. The transaction happens. We don't need to wait for the credit card company to approve my transaction, or transaction goes to the bank and bank take 3 days to make the payment. No, that is not going to happen. That will happen instantly, but depending upon what are the terms to be two parties have. It's traceable because the transactions are linked to each other, and then there is an absolute traceability. Transaction can go to all the way to the origin. There is no need for reconciliation because there are direct transaction happening, and it is automatically reconciling itself. So all the trail of when to buy, when buying happened, how it was paid, it's all automatically linked to each other. And then of course, there are industries who are benefited in this by this using this new technology. They are mostly the one that are using a large number of customers or or suppliers. So the larger the data, more difficult for it to secure, but blockchain environment make it possible to create such a security. So especially the financial institutions who are dealing with the clients, a large number of clients. Public sector has a hell of a data. Energy sector has the customers, which are us, kind of. So wherever there are large data, large public information available, sits in the database, that is always vulnerable for hacking or for the third party who are using it without proper authority. In blockchain environment, that is simply not possible to hack these. I mean, so far what technology we have, and we can see theoretically it's impossible with the hashing or the chain creating with the hash link to the previous hash. And also on top of that, peer-to-peer environment, and that is making it, sounding it very difficult, if not impossible. Now we come to the topic. Our topic is what challenges? So we all are CFOs, and our core responsibility is to make sure that our internal and external customers are satisfied with the performance. And because these technologies keep on emerging, we have to be on top of this technology to understand how does it work and make a best use of it. The more we are lagging behind, the more difficult it becomes, because right now the technology is keep on getting complicated as it is evolving. The more parties now, imagine the banks also trying to adopt blockchain technology. So this is making it a very, very complex situation. It will take time to understand, it will take time to get trained into this environment, but the sooner, the better. And the way it is progressing, it will not take much time before the majority of the organization will start using it. I mean, I can say like next 5 to 7 years, blockchain will be very much in technology, and majority of the organizations who are large and many of the middle-sized organizations will be using it. It is a chain reaction because the technology cannot be there. So a few, for example, if my majority of the customers start using blockchain technology, I cannot stay away from there. So I have to be in line with their technology because they will be forcing me to use it because they are using blockchain and I am not. So I will be like outside of their network, which is causing problem for them. And that's why they will be probably looking for a supplier who is using blockchain technology rather than their trusted old suppliers. So that technology usually changes the way we work, so for example, I cannot go and deal with a supplier who is using a manual system. So I need a digital invoices. I need the payment being done upfront. I need the online banking system. So if the person is sending me a check, what do I do with that? That's a hassle and nuisance for me. So I want them to simply simply send the money digitally or buy through the interbanking, through using the online banking. That's why my inclination usually towards those who are using the technology rather than the one who are lagging behind. That's why I say when the larger organization start using it, which is right now happening, many of them using it, but a large majority is still not. They're assessing, but once it's a chain reaction. So depending upon who has what kind of a customer and supplier, the more it is growing in the market, the more other companies are forced to take it. Our traditional role of the CFOs is generally an execution, is generally enablement and the development. But that creates a trust on the numbers, that creates a detailed transparency and insight for management information, that gives me my house in order governance, that gives me more transparent, I create a funding for the organization, and I am a part of the developing a part of the business strategy development, and I'm the core person for internal uh, information provision. This will change when the new role, when the blockchain environment taking over many of the things. So the trusting of the number will not be an issue at all. Security, data security will be automatically there. Transparency will be there. Transaction will be there. Account reconciliation, no need to do. So what my role will evolve into a more towards decision-making process. So handling, so the time that I'm investing right now in day-to-day transaction managing, and then accuracy of the transaction and validity of transactions, and creating and making sure that, that the security is there, IT is working fine, blah, blah, that will be minimized to an extent that I'll have enough time to go and sit with the management and help them in decision-making process, which is, by the way, a CFO's core function. But that core function sometimes go on the backseat because I have multiple problems in my systems. So that role can come forward, and the organization's expectation will increase automatically. So, but there is one thing that we need to know. We all will agree that our role will be evolving to more towards decision-making process, strategy planning, than just managing day-to-day transaction. But to reach to that level, the challenge will be our transitionary arrangement. When our organization will be adopting the blockchain, there will be a major transition will happen. This transition itself is a challenge. So what I've highlighted here, or I'm trying to highlight here, and I'm summarizing most of the challenges into 4 broader categories. So that will be like how to adopt in an organization a blockchain for portal, what accounting will face challenge, the control environment, and the regulations, because regulatory information also is still developing. Let's talk in detail one by one about the 4 major challenges. Adoption itself has about 6 different challenges. Implementation would be a first and core question that we all will have. So what happened? We already have many systems. So you can assume that I have a policy and procedures in place and is working according to my current system. It is our general desire, or you could say, or a tendency, that whenever I change the system, I try to fix my current policies and procedure into a new system. The new system should work in such a way that it can work smoothly with my existing policy and procedure. So if I'm trying to take a brand new technology, which is blockchain, and I still want to have the same policies and procedure, I'm basically defining the broader purpose and defining myself or taking a full advantage of the new system. So I need to, when I'm adopting the blockchain technology, I have to change myself or reimagining my entire processes so that it can align with the blockchain rather than blockchain align with my existing policies or the procedure, the processes. The processes have to change. What processes have to change, that is the detailed study that need to do before even we think about implementing. So when we say today that we need to implement blockchain, we need to start working on processes. So what process has to stay, what processes need to change? Because blockchain itself will create many different challenges and many different opportunities. So if challenges, we don't deal with it, the opportunity will not come. The new technology, we need to adopt it, that's fine, this is given, but then my current processes have to change also. I cannot just adopt the technology without changing myself. The other main problem that I will see is
Salam.
Sorry, here anybody is speaking, can you just mute yourself? Okay, I think it's mute. So the other problems that we are having is because the technology is new, there are not many places that we can go and experience this, how it is working. So the experience that I gained today while so is finding to implement SAP in my organization, SAP or Oracle. I have many other CFOs who have done this before. So I have a reliable network where I can go and talk and share the experiences and try not to repeat in my organization. But in blockchain, because we cannot find many implementation already happening. And even if it is happening, that is new for them also, and they are experiencing a lot of problems, changing it, fixing it as they go forward. So for me, it will be a very good challenge that the experience will not that much available. So the initial process of finding what is the problems that the people are facing with is using this transition, having this transition will be very limited. So that will be coming as a major challenge. So we will be more relying upon the companies providing blockchains or technical people to come up with the right kind of experience backup. There is always resistance for a new technology. We all know that. No matter what technology we bring in, there is always a resistance. Especially because when we know that every transition will be known to the other participants or everybody who's part in the blockchain. So initially, right from the beginning, I need to set up the rule: what information will go public and what transaction will remain private. So in a setup, I need to spend more time by transaction to transaction, nature to nature, process to process, that what information blockchain will have as public and other participant can see, because they have to approve it also. So this they need to see that the transaction happening and who's doing it. This will create, even though I hide the transaction detail like amount, terms, conditions, everything, but still my competitor if they are also in the similar blockchain, same blockchain, they will know there is a transaction happening. Well, that is creating a sense of insecurity that will cause a resistance from my leadership. Okay, that's another topic, upgrading. So what happened when the organization ran for a long time, like if I'm using Oracle system, we know that we don't use every module of Oracle system. So fixed asset has a fixed asset module separately, which is either in-house or some other party developed, which is not Oracle system, but we integrate that. We have ordering process separately, not Oracle, but we integrate it. We have the product costing separate module, we integrate that. These integrations work well right now, but when we change to blockchain technology, blockchain will not be able to take this kind of integration. So I need to make sure that whatever integration I have done, the data is in a form that it can be translated or transferred to the new technology. So there will be a lot of groundwork I need to do to make sure that the information generated or the data generated from all these attachments is in a right order and in the right form that it can be taken over by the new blockchain system platform. Otherwise, we will be spending like months to reconcile what happened. That happens. I mean, usually when we change it and then the homework is not done properly for the data migration, we end up having a kind of a mess. And that mess takes a long time to be clear. Okay, so because there are many suppliers here and they are new, development happened, maybe hardly anybody can say that they are experts and their software is a fit for our organization. So it's more for me to go and do the hunting for the software. It will take a while, It will take a long time to process because the technology itself takes a lot of, it require a bigger hardware depending upon the size of my organization. So if my organization is a large one, I cannot use that blockchain platform or the software that is creating for a medium-sized organization, because that will not be able to manage the hundreds and thousands of hashes being created on a daily basis. So the software that I will be taking, the app that I will be taking or developing, and has to match with the requirement that I have. And that requires a lot of shopping. It's not like today, if I am large organization or even the mid-large organization, I should go for, let's say, SAP, Oracle, or similar software. I just take it, or similar platform. I use it to develop my accounting software. But in blockchain, I need to do a shopping. Every blockchain is not capable of handling every transaction. So some blockchains are specialized in healthcare sector, some in the manufacturing sector, some in the banking sector. So these are separately made, developed, and then again, there are customization happening. So that is another big challenge. And the last but not the least, employees. So people, like, we are sitting and talking about what the hell is this blockchain. None of my employees know about that. So I need to train them. Depending upon what task they are using, but broad general awareness of the blockchain, they have to know. That has to be created and they need to be trained. So eventually every person in the organization who's using or touching a data at all at any point of time, they need to be trained for blockchain. So you see, it's only adoption has quite a few challenges. Implementation, where do I get the experience from the industry? And none actually, it's already limited. There is an internal resistance from adoption, no matter how beneficial it is. But security is a concern. Security of my transactions is a concern. I need to upgrade my system, existing system. I need to make sure that the data is ready for migration. And then finding the right application and training my staff. So before even I go for implementation, these are the major challenges I need to encounter and I need to cover up. Next topic, second in the line, is accounting issues. The problem with the accounting issue with the blockchain is that it actually need a tangible transaction. So what we do is, in accounting, we all know that we do adjustments. We like adjustment. We just do adjustment. That no accounting department can run without having adjustments, accruals. These adjustments will not be as simple as we do today in a blockchain environment, because blockchain needs a tangible transaction. It has to happen. It's more like a develop through a cash flow system, or make the payment happen, or make the transaction completed somehow. To make an adjustment, correction, it will be, there is a way of doing it, but this is a complex way of doing it. So more important is that we should be having our processes in order that the first transaction which is entered into the system is the right transaction and happen perfectly or correctly or mostly correct. Because the adjustments is a problem, and accrual is also itself is a challenging. So it's like adjustments. So we just do it, whatever the challenge we have in doing an adjustment, accrual will also have the same challenges. Accounting for digital assets, like I say, we probably need to have another session to talk about the cryptocurrencies and how it will impact our books and the processes. Accounting also will have the similar issue, because cryptocurrencies are, again, the treatment is different, recording is different, their presentation is different. They are money, but they have this own market value. So it's not like the currency. So even no matter which environment, which country I am, cryptocurrency can keep on changing, the valuation changing. So it requires another specialization for how to record the digital assets. Accounting has an issue. So other than, we are not talking about the three triple entry system, but because that was initial concern, but it is all resolved as the blockchain keep on developing. because every transaction being written on every ledger. So my transaction, if I'm doing a transaction, everybody has its own ledger and a transaction being written on everybody's ledger. But this is being separately identified as not my own transaction. That's why that is not a concern. Concern is here is the treatment of the digital assets and treatment of the accounting adjustments. For doing the accounting adjustment, and when we do a system adjust process to make sure that we all aware of how to adjust. Auditing is a challenge itself. Although when we say that the data is transparent, it's secure, fine, but again, even the security doesn't really stopping wrong transaction to go in. So if me and another my supplier trying to do call a fictitious currency transaction like this can, I mean, I don't call it a fraudulent, but I can not legal in case, but that can happen. Simple as that. So I can pay kickbacks still to the other party because that is a transaction. A transaction happen. It is not stopping a transaction to happen. It is stopping the not unauthorized user or from somebody from outside to use it. It is stopping it. But if all the peers within the blockchain, if they agree on some transaction, the transaction will go. It is illegal. So auditing will have still a challenge that to find out how to stop, how to identify this is not a kickbacks or a money laundering transaction or illegal transaction or fraudulent when the two parties are agreed between each other. So that will happen. I mean, on top of that, because the technology is evolving, is developing, and it is not adopted by everybody. So even if I adopt in my organization blockchain, many of my suppliers or customers will not be using it. Means I will be running it. There are transactions which is happening from outside of the blockchain. So that is making my transaction, my life more complicated because I need to run my blockchain and then I need to deal with the transaction which is happening outside of the blockchain because I can't make the payment to them through blockchain because they are not on the blockchain. So I need to use the traditional accounting for them as well. And then transfer that data into my existing blockchain application. That will be, I mean, that is the major where that is the moment I have. Then party company still happening, but when the banks or many third parties, which is part of my peer-to-peer transaction will not be there, then auditors will not see any third-party confirmation coming, or where do they send the third party? So they will be relying more on their testing rather than third-party confirmation. And like I say, the transaction outside database, outside the blockchain will be a major threat for them also, because that will, so their auditing procedure will need to modify to one for blockchain, then for not for blockchain, and one for the one who are using both of them. So that is a complex. Internal control also a complexion because the transactions are linked to each other. Like I say, they are my suppliers or anybody who's in the network can do a transaction with each other. In this case, if the auditor are satisfied with my internal control, but how do they satisfy in my supplier's internal control? How do they know that transaction cannot happen fraudulently? Because again, faults can happen. We have the two parties, in my account payable officer and the other company's account payable officer are happy to make a transaction, which is not authorized internally, that can still go. So my internal control they can rely upon because part of the blockchain environment, but the other party, if they are not, then so auditing will still have an issue. They are evolving. So every other day we see the larger audit firms keep on developing their policies and procedures to come up with a solution for these options. Now, regulation is another threat. At the moment, regulations happening. Many countries have adopted or they have come up with a regulation on using blockchain, but there are still these are still being evolved. Like I say before, for accountants and for the even blockchain developers, this is taking time because they need to understand there is no backup experience available in the industry. So we all learning as we go forward. Similarly, regulators keep on evolving their regulation or amending their regulation as they see the new problems coming up. For us, like as a CFO, when I go for this, I need to be very well aware of the regulatory environment that keep on changing because the regulators also making changes very frequently. And especially on those countries where the cryptocurrencies have been accepted as a mean of business or a term of within their economy, that become more complex regulatory environment because then cryptocurrency has to be controlled. So some countries like Pakistan has not really adopted the cryptocurrency. They don't allow. So they don't allow doesn't mean that they will never allow. When they allow, they will have to change the entire set of regulations. So the money laundering had to change, security exchange laws change, banking change, foreign currency change, and they need to come up with some kind of a taxation amendment for cryptocurrencies because of the nature and the valuation process. So these and the last item is that in the regulators that they are more worried about the smart contract that is not visible, but that is very much embedded into the blockchain environment that makes my life easy if it is implemented properly. It is saving a lot of time. It is originating itself the transaction and making it happen. Probably we need to have a separate session to understand what is smart contract under the blockchain environment because it itself is a subject and itself has a benefit, a lot of advantages, but a lot of challenges as well at the same time. So I think I try to summarize because the time is very short. This discussion is not to be wrapped up within an hour because understanding takes time and the challenges I try to make it up very briefly, quickly summarize into the 4 broad categories. But I hope that I have given you a lot of food for thought. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take. But before we go forward, and let me just give you a closing remarks that adopt it. I mean, if you guys resist, the more resistance it will make more challenging. Adopt it, go for it, try to take courses, try to understand, develop understanding with blockchain, and the more important is how does this implemented? Because sooner or later it's going to will approve to adopt to convert this platform to blockchain. When they do that, we as the CFOs have a major challenge of implementation because no matter what you say, this is a business decision, but eventually it's an accountant or the CFOs who have to take the lead because it involves financial transactions, it involves the data, and it involves to some extent IT challenges also. So we will be the one who are making it happen, and we should be ready for it. At the end, I just want to say thank you for listening all these. Gatling is an organization which offer business consultancy, management consultancy, mostly into the corporate finance and business modeling, post-integration services. We are many people, about 50 in sitting. We have offices, 6 partners that we have, 4 of them sitting in UAE, 1 in Bahrain and 1 me in UK. And we are recently setting up our office in Karachi as well. Our existing offices are in Dubai, Bahrain, Saudi, and in London, where I sit. And thank you very much. Please let me know if you have any questions. I can probably take an answer.
So thank you very much for such a prodigious session, Mr. Abdulaziz, and I believe it would have made a valuable addition to the knowledge of our participants. So meanwhile, I received a number of questions from our participants, and taking into consideration the time constraint, I have shortlisted some of the questions, and I would request you to please answer those questions. First question asked by someone else. You told that using blockchain technology, payments are being made using cryptocurrencies. So what are the legal backing of cryptocurrencies by the central bank of different countries? So over to you, Mr. Abdulaziz, for the answer, please.
Okay, like I say, cryptocurrency is itself a topic. If I start going into telling that what different countries are doing it will take a long time to answer. But in general, some countries which have a broader control over their internal regulatory environment have adopted it. Like UK, US, many countries have done this, mostly because they can manage the control over the cryptocurrencies. It's a cross-border problem more than the internal problem, because the cryptocurrency is does not belong to any country. It's just system-generated digital currency. And that's why the ownership is a major issue. And then once it happened, there is nowhere you stop cross-border flow. Therefore, the regulations are being made to not to stop because they know they cannot, but the use is creating an issue. The more at the moment happening is how to disclose the information. The disclosure, and where you get the currency, where you are using it, where it is going, how do you report in your financial statements. These are broadly the regulations happening at the moment. But the countries are still trying to regulate the generation of the cryptocurrency. So briefly, I can tell that cryptocurrencies are being generated when the blockchain transaction happens. So for example, me and my supplier create a transaction. There is a hash created that we talk about that. The hash creation requires a large machine that is creating an algorithm and it generates the code. Generally speaking, there are third parties. People are sitting who are called miners. They sit and they use their own machine and link to the blockchain environment or the platform, and they do the transactions for them, generating a hash. When the hash is generated, the cryptocurrency is being generated automatically for the payment. Now, the cryptocurrency, sorry to say that cryptocurrency, they generate their own commission by doing the transaction. I need to buy, to make the payment to my supplier, I need to have cryptocurrencies. Where do I buy cryptocurrencies? That is available in the generally money market who are dealing, we call ICOs or cryptocurrency exchanges. These exchanges are not really existing. These exchanges are, again, you cannot just walk into any building and say, or any exchange house and say, I need to buy cryptocurrency. You need to buy online. Means they can be sitting in Japan or China or somewhere data house, they are generating cryptocurrencies. So the regulation required to stop fake cryptocurrencies. Many of the countries have already encountered fake currencies being created just for buying and selling purposes. There is no underlying assets on that. So yes, the regulations are different in different countries, but this is depending upon what challenges do they have and what experience do they have with their own internal environments. Pakistan hasn't adopted, so there is no set of a regulation available at the moment. But like I say, as we go forward, sooner or later they have to adopt it, because otherwise the blockchain will not happen. So they will have the pressure from the international parties whom they are dealing. If the European adopt mostly the blockchain, then they will force the local vendors or customers in Pakistan to adopt the technology. When they adopt, the cryptocurrency will automatically becoming a part of the transaction. At that point of time, central bank has to come up with a solution with a regulatory environment. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you very much. Next question is implementation of AI, artificial intelligence, and IoT a prerequisite for the implementation of blockchain in the organizations?
Not really. Look, blockchain is a platform, is a separate platform, but because this is generating online transactions, it is dealing with the data. It is dealing with the transaction which is happening without a third party. It is more advisable, and it become like inevitable to have artificial intelligence embedded into this. This will happen. I mean, theoretically, you can go without it. Theoretically, we can have blockchain without even dealing in cryptocurrency. That is very theoretical. But in reality, that probably not happen. Because if you use blockchain without cryptocurrency, then it become a database. Simple. It will not transaction. It will not do any transaction. Similarly, if you don't have the artificial intelligence or the Internet of Things kind of thing, uh, the transactions will be having its own challenges. It will not generate as much information as we require, and the use will be limited. So yes,
Thank you very much.
in summary, answer is yes, it can be used without artificial intelligence, but that is not practical.
Thank you very much. Last question. Someone said that it seems blockchain can support more kind of illegal transactions instead of ensuring transparency of the transactions. So how do you see the blockchain future in Pakistan?
Your voice dropped. I couldn't hear. Can you please repeat?
I can blockchain kind of transactions instead of ensuring the transparency future in Pakistan.
Okay, your voice is still dropping, but what I can understand from bits and pieces that I hear is that you say the blockchain cannot stop, or it doesn't aim to stop the illegal transaction. Although it is giving a lot of transparency, it is very much secure transaction, generating a security on the transactions, but still it is not stopping illegal transaction. That's right. So for example, money laundering can still happen. Two parties agree on a transaction that happened. The transaction can be very much transparent, can be very much secure, but it's still an illegal transaction. In Pakistan, the regulator comes in. This is because the good thing is that transaction is transparent. It's not like you can just hide the transaction or under the manual processes where the link is not created or the link is broken. In blockchain, the transaction link is not broken. You can reach to the origin of the entire chain of transactions very quickly and simply, because every transaction is linked to each other. There is no way you can hide the transaction. So when the regulations are strong and the processes in the government organization is strong, they can easily trace the transaction. It provides the transparency provides much larger and efficient tool to the regulators to track those transactions. But yes, blockchain itself is not aimed or meant or prepared to stop the illegal transaction. That's not the purpose. But the transparency of the transaction can give a much efficient and effective tool to the regulator to trace them. I hope I answered your question.
So thank you very much. I would like to extend a huge gratitude to the Honorable Speaker, Mr. Abdul Aziz, on behalf of PIPFA Faisabad Branch Committee. So thank you very much for sparing your precious time today to conduct this session.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the participants.
So ladies and gentlemen, thank you, sir. So ladies and gentlemen, we have with us a very special guest today, Mr. Usman Ahsan, who is a member of BOG of PIPFA. He is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan and Institute at Pakistan Institute of Public Finance Accountants. He is currently working as a CFO, Anjum Textile Private Limited, and has also served as a vice president of PIPFA in the previous year. So, sir, I would request you to please present a formal vote of thanks to all the participants and speakers. Over to you, Mr. Usman Hassan.
Thank you, Kamal. It is indeed my pleasure to extend this vote of thanks to our learned speaker, Mr. Abdul Aziz, and also our participants from across the globe who have participated in this webinar. First of all, like the areas which Mr. Abdul Aziz explained, especially the definition in this simple, like a layman way, and the structure, the origin of the name of the blockchain. Thanks God, because especially since this issue from one of our minister who explained what COVID stands for, we were trying to understand what blockchain might come up with. Like there might be a new definition of how the word blockchain has origin. But anyhow, now that's explained. Then the challenges in implementation, that all those challenges were explained, and I would just like to relate it how we have faced a similar challenge in our organization. For example, I'm from the textile industry, and I've seen people having this issue when there's this Better Cotton initiative. They've also adopted a blockchain model, whereby our buyers are forced to only adopt supplies from those people who are registered with the Better Cotton initiative. So there's a trickle down impact that from the exporters to the spinners to the ginners and to the farmers, they are all connected. And if somebody is not connected in the system, they are thrown out of the whole supply chain. So the blockchain works in some way or another in the same mechanism. So thank you, Mr. Abdul Aziz, for also explaining that to us. So at the end, I would just like to, on behalf of Faisalabad Branch Committee of Pakistan Institute of Public Finance Accountants, I would like to thank you again for your precious time, presentation, and also patiently answering all the questions of the participants. I would also like to thank all the participants for their time they've taken out to join this seminar, and I would request them to follow further webinars as well. And I would also like to extend vote of thanks to our team who've done a marvelous job by arranging these very interesting webinars. Thank you very much, Ms. Kamal. Over to you.
So thank you very much. Once again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today over here. So I am just signing out. Take care. Allah Hafiz.